Coach, thank you for being here with me today.
I'm glad to be with you anytime I can. I enjoy it.
Oh, come on. This is not me as the chancellor talking to our head basketball coach. This is me as a former student of leadership, scholar in leadership areas. I want to start with, if you just think back to growing up, what was the point at which you thought, you know what, I could lead rather than play? Or I'm a leader as I play. Or did you ever think of yourself as a leader? When did that happen?
I don't know if I ever did, but I can tell you the one time that I was in the Junior Human Relations Council when I was in high school, and this was back when schools were being integrated, a lot of racial strife going on,
Right.
and a lot of hostility going on. And we had a major fight in our high school, and being part of the Junior Human Relations Council, which were black and white,
Right.
they put together this letter, and for some reason they asked me to read it in front of the whole student body.
Really?
And that was the first time I ever stood up, and I was scared to death, because I wasn't a great reader or any of that. But the great leadership that I learned really took place when I was in the junior high school. My teachers,
Is that right?
they showed me what leadership was. I didn't know it at the time. And what they showed me was leadership is pouring into somebody and pouring into a program, whatever you believe in. I had some wonderful 8th, 9th grade teachers that, for whatever reason, I was going through a really difficult time, and they poured into me. And
So what's an example of pouring into you that you?
well, I had made up my mind I was going to quit school when I got to be 16, because my sister had just gotten killed in a car accident, and my little brother and I, who spent a lot of time with her, had decided, and he actually did. But I was I was going to a guy named Mr. Monroe over at the Family Guidance Center, and little did I know that he had eventually gone over to our junior high school and told our principal, if we don't move Rick into a different pool of teachers, he's not going to make it. And he said, we need to help him. And the principal, Clinton Sigma, who ended up he became a life friend to me. And later on, when I was into coaching, I went back and thanked all those teachers for what they did for me, and went
Really?
to dinner with them. And I had a wonderful 9th grade algebra teacher by the name of Alice Watts, who I loved her to death. And she was the first one to make me start studying, and actually said to me, you could go to college and play basketball. And I never thought about college. It was never in my mind. But she poured into me, and I look back, those were the real leaders that I've learned from, because it's about pouring into people and helping them when they're down. And but yet I also have learned that I'm still in the position I'm in, I need help.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly looking for that, so leadership, as you know, is
Yeah.
a broad
Oh, yeah.
broad area.
Right.
But I've gone from being probably an authority, trying to be a hard-nosed, tough kind of coach, to trying to be more of a servant kind of leader.
So, okay, so let's go back a little bit. So as you start you play basketball, and you then, how did you just start thinking, you know what, maybe I could become a coach? Like, how did you start thinking of yourself as a coach rather than, okay, I'm done with playing, I could do this?
Again, when I went to high school, I was a starter as a sophomore, but I used to ride to Charlotte with my coach to study at other teams. I'd go
Really?
scouting with him, and I don't know why, but he asked me to go with him, and he started giving me all this material, and I just got into really wanting to coach basketball. Then I go to college, we have to do a basketball theory class, and I got into that. And believe it or not, there's some things that I did back then that I still use today.
Is that right?
I still use today, but I knew I wanted to be a high school coach and PE teacher. And a friend took me to the ACC tournament. Oh, I got married my senior year in college, and
Yeah.
I walked out and I said to Candy, I think I'd like to try to be a college coach. And she said, let's try it, let's do it. And I wrote all these letters. I still have them all, the rejection letters, and that came back, and I actually one from here.
Is that right?
And what's really funny, and I'm not bragging about this, but all the letters that came back, I've had the chance to be there as a head coach.
I think a lot of people look at you and think of you as a great basketball coach, but also as a mentor. So, eh, can you describe? I'm like, it seems like other young coaches, they look up to you. Do you think that all those early mentors, how has that affected the way you connect with other coaches, with players?
I enjoy people. I really do enjoy being around people, and I especially love being with people that they've got that special drive about them.
Right.
I always tell my guys the hardest thing to coach is effort. But when you're with young people that really have the effort to want to do it, you do really want to pour into them. And I look back, I do think that's what my teachers saw. I think they saw someone that really wanted to try to be good at something. And mine was sports because I did not come from an educated family. My parents were 8th grade educated, and grandparents couldn't read or write. And so I wanted to be good at something, and sports was my vehicle. And so the fact that I look back, I do think God has led me through all this. I really do. But the way I think you mentor people, you pour into them. I think you got to love them. I mean, and it's not about anything you're going to get out of it. It's what you can do to help them grow.
So that kind of connects to something else I wanted to ask you about. Sports is about winning and losing. How do you help players with the losses? And I'm not talking about any game right now this year or anything like that, but what do you do with those?
Well, I will tell you this. I was talking to some coaches the other night, and I said, I've never enjoyed winning enough. I've never been able to do it. I've always, I think, have been so afraid of failing that I can't, because I'm always thinking next one.
Yeah.
And so, Danny White's always with me after a game. I said, let these guys enjoy this a little bit, because I'm going to put a damper on it as soon as I walk in there, because I'm going to try to say some positive things, but my next line is going to be, what's next?
Yeah.
Because I quickly move on to the next thing. And I wish I could enjoy it more. We treat winning and losing exactly the same. And I probably am more harsh after a win than a loss, because I do think one of the worst mistakes people make is complacency, and myself included. That's why I don't think I can enjoy it, winning, and come immediately get to the next one. And so after a loss, I mean, we scrub it out. We got a formula. We got a way we do it. And after a loss, we do the same thing. But again, I don't think, unless there's a lack of effort, I do know I'm more harsh in my corrections after a win than I am after a loss.
I work for a guy, Randy, you know who I work for. And Randy Boyd says, he's an entrepreneur. He'll go give a commencement speech, and he'll stand up there and say, I want you to go out there and fail. Like, you're at commencement, you're talking to everybody who's thinking, I want you to fail fast, and I want you to learn from it. So I think about wins and losses like that. Like, it sounds like are you harsher on the wins because you're afraid there's nothing to learn from that?
People are naturally going to get complacent. They start feeling good about themselves and everything, that everybody's going to congratulate you, and it's easy to let your guard down. Yeah. And when you're in a race and you're competing, and we're not in we're in a long season, it's a long way, and everything matters every day, because I still believe in habits. I think that you are what you do in terms of the way you practice, you do things. So I think complacency is a really a tough thing, and I think it's just so easy to become complacent and to be satisfied. And with young people, as you know, we've lived around them, they sometimes don't know what's coming. Yeah. And I do know the ups and downs are coming, but I'm going to try to avoid, in my job, to prepare them ahead and show them what's coming, but it's still one day at a time. Yeah.
So you and I have been in our relative businesses for a while. I know that the way I lead now is a lot different than I did when I started. I think a lot that I thought I knew, I was so sure of when I started out, wasn't true. How have you changed? You started to refer to it a minute ago. Like, when you first started, I'm talking about you as a coach, but the way you led a team, you led your staff, has that changed over the years?
Oh yeah, it's simple. I got my ego in check.
Really?
Yeah, because when I first started out, I was one of the youngest head coaches in the country. Yep. Now one of the oldest. Yeah. But my ego was that I wanted everybody to think I was going to do it all. In practice, I didn't allow my assistants to get that much involved. I wanted to be like I knew it all. Yeah. When we lost, I took it personal, like those guys were embarrassing me or not doing the job. And so simply, and that's where we really came into it's not about me theory, because I had made it about me early. Okay. And so later on, and if you come to practice today, you're going to see how involved my coaches are. Yeah. And if I've got one thing that I think God has given me is the ability to hire people that I think are better than me, and then let them work. Back then, I didn't let them work.
That's key. It seems like to me the job of the head coach has changed a lot over the years. Like, it seems like you have to be a little bit more of a CEO than when you started this business. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but that means your staffs are bigger, right?
When I look back, I've learned to, like, I'm a coach. I'm not a CEO. I'm not. So I need somebody to do that for me. I don't
Yep.
like coming to the office. I don't do well sitting behind a desk. This is my office right here on a court like this. And I know this. I've learned that players respond better if you're talking to them in a better environment than if they're in my office. So
Okay.
I learned a long time ago that when you brought them in, I also learned about meetings. When you go into a meeting, I lived it, and we'd have meetings at a school that I was at for 4 hours, and I thought it was the biggest waste of time because it got back to who had the loudest voice, this and that, and the smartest guy in the room at the time wasn't saying anything. And so I've learned to talk to each one of my coaches each day individually because I don't want to go in a room and just
Yeah.
waste time.
Yeah.
And so that's where I've changed a lot. But again, I've, like Mary Carter, who's our director of operations, I learned a long time ago that was not a job for a coach. I needed somebody that had just a total, their whole mindset was what do they have to do to make this program better outside of basketball. And that's taking care of the players and all that. Most guys that were director of operations back then all wanted to work into coaching, and all the stuff that needed to get done didn't get done. And so I think the key is
Yeah.
the team you put around you is so important.
Yeah. Can you learn leadership from people who don't do it that well? Or can you only learn it? Have you learned it from people? Have you picked up nuggets from various people? Or is it all about, I want to be like this person?
I think you make a mistake if you just want to be like that. I think you got to be yourself, and I think you got to find out who that is. But I've worked for some great coaches, and I've taken something from every one of them, and I still use something from every one of them today. But also, I was fortunate to have as an assistant coach in this league back, 30, 45 years ago.
Yeah.
Working in my first job at George Mason, working in the Colonial. Great coaches that we went out and had to scout.
Yeah.
You can learn from everybody if you're
Yeah.
willing to do it. And so I've never tried to put myself in a box just to follow one
Yeah.
person. Like I studied John Wooden like you wouldn't believe,
Yeah.
and got a chance to spend a lot of time with him when he was in his 90s.
Well, I think when people think about John Wooden, and definitely when they think about you, they think about someone who coaches, leads players in the moment, but leads them for life. And you've been in this a long time, so you've got all these players. I just heard you talking about some of them a minute ago. Big name players. What responsibility do you still feel towards any of them or previous coaches that worked under you?
I love them all, and what I've always told all the players, a coach-player relationship works both ways.
Yeah.
Have I been closer to some players? Absolutely, because they wanted that.
Yeah.
Some players might not. Donde, I had to go back, and I did it. I made so many mistakes as a young coach, again, talking about ego, pride, doing it for the wrong reason. I actually went back and apologized to a lot of my players I coached at Providence. We had a game up there years ago, and I called a guy who's captain of our team, and I wanted to make things right with him, and I cried
Oh.
with him after the game. And you know what? Every one of them, and I think they all said, Coach, you were hard. And I think players today would tell you that I'm demanding. And it's not demand, it's a standard that we've set.
Right.
It's just a standard that we
Right.
want to live up to. And they said, it's amazing how many things that you do. And a bunch of these guys were coaches that we still do today. And so I think there's a standard
Yeah.
that you set. And I'm not going to make it personal. I did at one time. I'm
Yeah.
not going to do that.
Yeah.
So I've learned,
Yeah.
and I give all the credit to God because I was in a bad place with it because I just got angry, coached angry, and
Yeah.
all that. And so I'm still a work in progress even today.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
how I feel about myself
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you about is you're building a team of staff, or you're recruiting. How do you look at like what skills versus talent versus what are you looking for? Let's just start with assistant coaches, for example.
I've always said I'm going to always try to hire someone that, when they come in here and I tell them, I want you to wake up every day like this is your program, like you're the head coach.
Okay.
And I want you to look at it like that. I want you to understand that we've got one job here, and it's protect the integrity of this university,
Thank you.
this basketball program,
Yeah.
but treat it like you're the head coach. And
Wow.
I let people, I want my guys to obviously they're going to have a a tough time maybe being brutally honest with me, but it's my job to get them to talk, to try to get it out of them if I'm doing something wrong. But I've also, again, I've got where we are in today's world, I think you need older coaches that can really evaluate players, that know the business, because it's changed drastically, and now you're dealing with agents as much as you're dealing with educators back at the school, and so you need experience. But with that said, I want to have enough youth on our staff that relates to the players, even though I still feel like I can relate to players, because I was one of them.
Right.
And it seems like it was just yesterday.
Right.
And I know what they're going through. I know they want the same things that I want. People tell me all the time, kids have changed. They haven't. You know, they've got so much more distractions, but these kids are just, they're dreaming like I dreamed when I was 18. They have these dreams they want.
Okay, but so that's an important point. Kids haven't really changed so much, but everything about college athletics has changed. And even in the almost 7 years that I've been here, I've watched you adapt to changes that I know you didn't like in the industry, like what we're doing. So not every coach can do that. Some quit. Like, I don't want. What is it in your internal makeup that has allowed you to do that?
Well, one, I love coaching. I mean, I really do. I love coaching basketball. You know, Wim Sanderson one time said to me, he said, you know, this is a great job if you never had to play games. No kidding.
Yeah,
You know?
really.
But I truly love practice, and you know, when my time is up, I think that's what I'll miss the most. But I'm gonna tell you, Kevin Durant has one of the greatest statements ever. He said, "Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work."
Wow.
And that is true.
I love that.
That's true. And I've always said strength negates talent. And what I mean by that, you get big, strong guys and lean on guys that can jump. They can't jump as high. And you know, people say we play a football style of basketball, which I'm good with it. That's what I grew up doing. You know.
That's a nice way they talk.
Yeah. But you know, I just think you got to get people that are all going in the same direction. And the problem is, you know, is when you don't get the right person.
That's right.
And one of the hardest things, you know, is when you have to make changes. But you have to do it if they're not living to the standard and the culture of that. So when my coaches go out to recruit, I will tell you this, there will be times I'll be sitting in a gym and I'll look at the guy and I'll say, why aren't we recruiting that guy? And they will always say, Coach, he can't play for you. And they know the demands that we're going to place on him, and they've already done their intel. They know. And sometimes I say, well, let me make that choice. You know?
That's the risk of delegation, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's another thing I was thinking about. You live in a world, you always have, you've been attracted to a job where the results are so visible to everyone, and the expectations for you now are so high. Every single day, you've won or you've lost. And most people in their jobs, people don't really know how it went so much. So how do you manage that stress that comes with it?
What I would say is no one has higher expectations than us.
Right.
You and I mean, we know.
Right.
People might think they do, but they don't. They want to get it right.
Of course.
They really do. And you ask me how I handle it, it's no longer who I am. It's what I do. When I didn't handle it well and when I was stressed out about it, is because I took it personal, and I know we're going to do everything we can to get our team prepared. I know we're not going to win. I want to be the last team standing on a Monday night.
Right.
But that's going to be one team every year, but we're going to strive to get there. And I can live with losing if I know that we've prepared, we've done everything the right way. If we don't, that's when it's really hard. But honestly, Donde, I don't worry. I could care less what people say. I'm at the end of my career. And I'm going to tell you, that came from Dave Gavitt. I was lucky. He was the commissioner of the Big East, founder of the Big East. And I got into coaching. I was like the golden boy for 3 years, you know, young. And once we go back, and he could tell it. He said, you know, I had some issues that came up, and he brought me in, and he said, let me tell you something. If you're going to stay in this business, you better have selective hearing and selective reading. You ought to know what they're going to write after win. You don't need to hear it.
Right.
He said, you don't need to play any, just keep doing your job and don't worry about what outside people think, because they don't matter. He said, you got to know who does matter. And he said, that's your bosses.
Right.
He said, that's who matters. And he said, that as long as they know. And so I have been able, through a long time of my life, I could care less about the outside criticism or whatever, or the praise, because I know that's fleeting just as well.
Well, you know, one of the things I don't know if this has been true your whole career. I don't know the evolution of it, but you go right into a press conference right after every game. What advice would you give coaches about that? Or players? I know you pick the players that, I guess, that go do that. You always start with lifting up the other coach every single time. Did you always do that?
I did because I believe in it. And what you ask me what I do, I carry this
Okay.
because, and I do it during the game
Yeah.
because there's times that I'm human.
Yeah.
I want to erupt. And believe me, and I have a,
We kind of like seeing you do that too.
yeah, well, if you knew me,
Fans,
if you knew me back in the day,
Yeah.
the trouble I got in back in the day, I don't know if you would. I mean, I've gone into the referees' locker rooms and had altercations with coaches. I mean, I don't even, that's a long time past, but it's amazing how many people still come up to me and remind me of it sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, it really is. But the fact is, I have a God that I want to represent.
Yeah.
And I think that when I think about that, I believe the most important trait we can have is humility. And as badly as we want to win,
Yeah.
that other team does too.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to come in and be critical because until you walk in another man's shoes, I don't know. I just know that I respect the sport, and I do respect other coaches because I do know what
You know
we're
'em
talking
all.
about and the stress they're under.
Yeah.
And they got the same thing.
Right.
We all want to win,
Right.
and so I do have great respect, and it goes back to my faith. I know that I want to emulate what Christ would be like, but I also know that when it's time for me to be tough, I can be tough.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot of head coaches. I know a lot of them learn from you. Here's a question I have for you. Do you learn from other coaches in other sports, like other head coaches? What is there for you to learn from somebody else at this point in your career?
Absolutely. You can learn. I mean, I can learn from every coach I coach against, but here we've got great coaches. I mean, we got great coaches. And like you go back and look, again, I feel what they're going through, and we all know it. And you know, we don't get to spend a lot of time together, but being around them and watching their passion and how hard they work and the grind that they go through and what they're trying to do. Every team, there's going to be the ups and downs.
Right.
It is. I don't even if you think of the quote unquote perfect season. I mean, there's stuff you're always dealing with, but you absolutely learn from your people that you're around every single day on this campus. I don't care if it's people that work in this building that take care of this building. You, Randy, it doesn't matter, Danny. You learn from those people because, one, you find that there's a great love here. And yeah, do we want to win every game and be the best? There is no doubt.
Yeah.
And you know what? We deserve it.
Yeah.
You know, as much as anybody else.
Right.
But it's not easy.
Right.
But we got to fight for it every day.
Okay, my last question. When you're advising young coaches who are still thinking, do I really want to be a head coach, or do I even want to become a coach? What advice would you give them? Why do this?
Well, as you know, I've got coaches now that are going out.
Right.
And again, this is not to blow smoke at you or Randy. I always tell them who's running that university, who's making those choices, because I've been in some good places, some okay places, and right now, this is the best I've ever been in. And it's because of we have a board that lets you and Randy do your job.
Right.
You and Randy let Danny do his job.
Right.
Danny lets us do our job.
Right.
When I walked on this campus 11 years ago, I was walking across the street to do a headshot, and I bumped into a young student, freshman named Brandon Carpenter. And he went, "Coach, I'm so excited here." He came to a game a couple weeks ago, 11, and took a picture with me.
Aww.
And he's never forgotten it. But he said, "I'm so excited you're here." I'm excited for our students here on campus. I mean, I love, I don't think people realize how hard our cheerleaders work.
I agree.
I mean, they're national champions. I don't think people realize how hard these kids work. If they did, they would never criticize them.
That's right.
You know, they never would.
That's right.
And the same with our students. They're here because of what's going on here. I think we've got, right now, the hottest, best university in the country. What's happened here in the last 11 years is mind-boggling to me. I mean, I know what I walked into. I'm talking about the whole thing, right? And it goes back to what we're talking about, the leadership. It's strictly leadership and vision. And when I think of the board, people that I know on it, but I think of you and Randy, you know, we're getting up in our age, but there's a drive there to make a difference.
Right.
And not just make a difference in what we do with our job, but in people's lives.
Right. Well, we are so fortunate to have you as our head basketball coach, and I hope it's for many more years to come. So thank you so much for doing this, Rick. Appreciate you. Love you.
Love you.